Alright, today's Hammond collection video is the Dryosaurus. This is the last of the small figures from the current wave. This one's kind of weird because it wasn't up for pre-order on Target alongside the other ones, as far as I could tell. I ended up ordering mine on Amazon, and it just finally came. This, of course, is included in the line because it is from the novels alongside all the other small figures in this current wave, Ornitholestes, Musaurus, and Dryosaurus, all novel species, which is fun. I like that. I think it's an interesting animal to include in the line in terms of line diversity. This small ornithopod is pretty cool. We'll have to take it out of the package and see how it looks. Now, I already opened the side here, but this damage you can see up here to the side of the box, this is Amazon's fault. This is how it came. Just worth pointing out. Not a big deal, just slightly torn. We'll see if that, if there's any corresponding damage inside anywhere, maybe, but otherwise it seems like it's fine. So let's take it out and take a look. Just set the box aside for now. Okay, so yeah, there's the figure in the plastic. Where is the tail? Okay, the tail is not in the plastic. It's in the interior cardboard. Whew. I figured it had to be in there because I didn't see the I didn't see any corresponding slot for it in the packaging here, but you can never be too sure. All right. So yeah, I don't see any damage to the interior plastic or anything. It looks like it was just external surface damage. Let's extract it from its ancient tomb and take a look at it proper. All right, you got three pieces. You got the main body, of course, with all the limbs. Then you've got the alternate jaw piece, this very tiny little, bottom jaw that you can swap out for a closed mouth look, and a tail, which does have paint on it. It actually seems to be decently long, which is why the end ends up being curled, because it is, crammed in a package that's about this thick. So I'm fine with it being curled up at the end. I think that's a worthwhile trade in order to get a little bit of extra length here. Standard tail connector spot, of course. Plug that in there pretty easily. Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty decent, like a nice tail length actually for this, surprisingly. The small figures especially tend to suffer from maybe some shorter tails. All right. Well, we've got head and neck articulation. So the bottom of the neck here, you get some rotation side to side. And then you got the same kind of rotation going on at the base of the skull there, with, again, another swivel joint you can see there on the back of the head. The overall, this joint seems pretty stiff at the base of the skull, so I'm probably not going to be able to do much with that. Yeah, not looking like it. One complaint I've had in general with some of the recent Hammond collection releases is the paint matching being poor, where the external pieces connect to the main body. This one is again mismatched. It's not the worst we've seen, but yeah, the you could tell there's a difference between the color of plastic used for the soft tail versus the paint applied to the hard plastic body, and the matching between these two colors isn't quite there. It's also a little weird how the patterning is on the back of the body. You get this like light splotching down the back, and then you get these very big thick splotches on the tail, again making it feel like the tail was designed without looking at the rest of the body. Yeah, weird. The paint job in general is kind of weird, with it like tapering from this like more like earthy green up to this more blue green, and then getting this head that's like this gray paint. I don't like hate that triple color look, but it does feel very toy to me. Like having this like weird three color gradient that the animal switches between does not really feel like the best. to me. Just feels kind of strange. I don't hate the color palette. I think I like, these earthy tones on a Dryosaurus. I just question the way the colors switch between each other and like what this splotchy gold patterning is really supposed to be at the end of the day. In terms of other articulation, we got these very small arms, which are very much the kind of arms that I always worry about breaking, so I won't play with them too much. The hand position is palms facing each other, which is how it ought to be. That is supported by the elbow joints. The elbow flexes down like this with a swivel and up like this, which is how you get that, palms facing each other hand orientation. You can rotate it and do it like, Jurassic Park style bunny hands. But you do end up with some awkward looks to the wrist joints. And obviously the articulation then is going inward, like that. I, of course, am perfectly happy for the paleo accurate palms facing each other look. So this is great. The legs are the standard articulation as well. You've got the rotation at the hip, kind of limited by the shape of the body a little bit, and kind of snaps into a preferred position towards the front, more like that. You've got the knee, which can swivel down, forward, rotate, on both sides, of course. And then you've got the same thing at the ankle, where the feet can swivel in and out. I don't know, the best way to look at these is like this. As well as having a rotational joint, again, at that kind of swivel joint, allowing you to move the feet forward and backwards at the ankle. And then again, the same thing going on at the bottom feet here, where they can be moved, again, on the swivel and probably rotated. No, maybe the feet don't rotate. No, they do. Just this one's not as happy to rotate, but they do rotate. You can rotate the feet in and out like that. So quality control. This guy has no stiff joints. If anything, he's got a little bit of maybe this joint is a little too loose, but I think it's not going to be that bad given that this is a small figure. I think it's going to just position and stand itself just fine. I don't trust the arm joints. The arms are thin enough that it does make me question whether or not I'd ever want to really try and pose these that much, but they don't pose much anyway because they're pretty small. Now, I do want to try and switch out the jaws specifically on this guy. Of course, the thing they did with the jaws results in there being a very noticeable seam on the face, which ain't great. This open look, screaming Dryosaurus vibe ain't the best, maybe. So we might want to see if the closed mouth one makes it look a little more, a little less insane. Oh, and yes, the fingers are unpainted. There's no paint on the claws. It's probably not going to focus there, but they're just mitts of like, this blue-green. The toenails are painted black. I'm not sure if we can get a good enough look there. But yeah, the toenails are painted there, but not the dew claw. They have this weird uphook dew claw. They've done this on other figures, and I don't know where that's coming from, but it is really weird. This like very strongly recurved dew claw, like a spur or something. I don't know what the logic there is. I don't like it's almost kind of interesting conceptually from like a platypus poison spur type angle or something. But I just don't know why we're doing it on a dinosaur randomly. I don't know what the logic for it is there. All right, let me try and get this jaw switched out. So theoretically, you're just supposed to pull this like out here, I think. Maybe wiggle it a little bit. Yeah, you can see the seam like opens up more. Yeah, because it's just like a little peg in a hole, basically. So it should just eventually, like, wiggle out. I'm not a big fan of these alternate jaws as, like, an accessory. I think it's kind of weird. Oh, there it goes. Mother, love me. Okay. Yeah, there he is with the closed mouth pushed in there. So the seam, of course, remains noticeable. You can try a little bit to like adjust the positioning, and maybe try to conceal the seam a little bit more. Theoretically, maybe you could paint over that okay with the right kind of paint, but it's always going to be a little awkward if you're not repainting shit having that seam there. I think he looks much more pleasant with his mouth closed. I think he's got more of a nice friend vibe that I would want on a Dryosaur. Um, it's just unfortunate that that seam is there. My hot take with this line has always kind of been like, why do we need mouths that open on figures that have small mouths? I get having a mouth that opens on a theropod, but I don't know why we need like an opening mouth on like a Stego or a Trike or a Dryosaurus. And some people complain when these figures don't have mouths that open. Like at the end of the day, I just want the figures to look decent, and I'm not really necessarily here for 7,000 levels of posability. My priority always has been, does the figure look good? Articulation has kind of always been a secondary thing to me. Like, if I wanted to buy just statues, I would just buy statues, obviously. But, you know, I'm looking for something that treads the line between the two, and my priority, like I just said, looking good first, posability second. So, and like I think the posing options for like a small beaked mouth are so limited. It's just a flap that opens like a fucking Muppet. Like, why do we need that? I don't get it. All right, let's tier rank this guy. All right, small camera down in the corner. We of course don't have any reference material because this is an animal that has never appeared in the films. Um, I think we do have like one semi-canonical, like ornithopod, if I remember correctly, from like the DPG list. But we've never had any of these animals in the movies, which I feel is a missed opportunity. Like Hypsilophodon, Othnielia, and Dryosaurus are all canonical to the novels, though we'd have like no animals of that type in the films ever. Very weird. Gallimimus definitely stole their thunder when they were adapting the first book. So I like this figure. I'm pretty happy with this. It's about what I expected. Maybe it looks a little nicer than I expected based on the pre-production design. I feel like the color palette could be a lot better. I really don't feel this gradient between these as much. I'm very happy to have it as a species. I like the sculpt. I like what they've done here with it. The longer tail is nice. It's definitely no Mosaurus, but it's also leagues ahead of the Ornitholestes. I mean, like the feet shape and size, I think are pretty good on this guy. Like, I'm pretty happy with that. Balance seems fine. No real quality control issues to speak of beyond just kind of the general insane paint scheme and like the mismatched color on the tail, which again is like, there's worse. It's not the most mismatched color we've seen. I forget who was notably the worst, but um, it's definitely been worse. I'm feeling B tier for this. I like this more than the Sino. The Galley is an interesting comparison because the Galley is like a similar niche, a similar scale, kind of very comparable. The Galley, of course, was labeled a Jurassic Park Galley, but has a Jurassic World concept color palette, or patterning rather, more so, which is always a sticking point. How do I feel about this versus the Corythosaurus? I like the novelty of the Corythosaurus being this film animal with this very unique color palette. Um, Honestly, I think it goes between the Corytho and the Sino for me. think that's where I'm feeling it. I feel like, okay, so I feel like this goes here, but I feel like there's a bit of a gulf between these two, right? Like, if we were to divide these by like high and low tiers, who I think is high A or high B versus low B, I think the dividing point literally is like right here. Like these four are high A to me. This is the start of like low B or high B, and this is like low B, I think. Because a lot of these are figures are more problematic or forgettable and have weird quirks. But I like I unreservedly like the Dryo. I suppose that's the problem with like this SABCD tier list, right? You've got two high tiers, very clear where those lie. Two low tiers, very clear where those lie. But then you've got this in between tier, which is kind of like okay, right? This in between tier that's like almost there. And it's kind of like, do these fall on the side where you like them or where you don't? Like this is the tier that would make the most sense to break up into two levels. Honestly, I could go. That could be a way we restructure this because it is getting a little bloated. I might do that. Let's do that right now. There's the restructured tier list, splitting up each tier into high and low, which allows us to make a larger position for the camera, which is also great. Going forward, we will follow this split now. So yeah, I think all the large theropod figures were exceptional, so I kept Spino as the dividing point on high S versus low. I think the Brachii is the first figure in S tier where I start to have some larger reservations about it. But they're still, of course, exceptional. In A tier, I split between the Metri and the SDCC Buck Rex. The Buck is kind of a dividing point between quality and novelty, in that it's not very accurate to the actual film design, but is also nostalgically kind of referencing the Kenner take on it. Whereas the Metri is like unreservedly a very cool figure that's referencing this animal never seen in the franchise that has been there since the original film. For B tier, I think the Dryosaurus split, which motivated this entire discussion, is accurate. For C tier, it ended up being a perfectly even split. I felt like the Geosternbergia Raptor division was kind of the place to go. We had this whole like clump of raptors on the low end of the tier list, and I didn't see anything that would split the large classic raptor off of the rest of them in terms of quality. And then on D tier, I felt like the JP3 female raptor at least has the novelty of representing that animal. And the Tiger Stripe Raptors, both of the Hammond and Amber variety, always disappointed me with their mediocre paint jobs relative to the actual design of the Lost World Raptor. So putting those on the low tier as the dividing point made sense to me. And this also just ended up in the end being pretty decently balanced split between high and low tier in most of the categories, with the exception kind of being like high B. But I still stand by this split. I think this is correct. All right, that'll be it for this video. The next wave has been revealed through leaks, including hybrids and some other interesting inclusions. There's like a Hypsilophodon. I think there was Dominus Rex and Scorpios Rex, if I'm not mistaken, and then a Mutodon figure and a Rebirth Dilophosaur. So an interesting wave, very varied. The hybrids are definitely going to be an interesting one for me to rank with how much I dislike those creatures, but we'll try to be... I think we can be fair, honestly. Like, I could see myself enjoying like an Indominus or a Scorp figure more than a poorer figure of an animal I like more. So I don't think it'll be... I don't think there'll be a conflict of interest in our ranking. And all the rankings are always somewhat subjective too, right? Would Carnotaurus be the top of S if it wasn't my favorite dinosaur? Probably not, right? I like the Carnotaurus figure so much because it is an excellent figure of my favorite animal. And in the same token, it's also counterbalanced by like a poor figure of an animal I really like aggravates me more than it might otherwise bother me. Like the JP3 Raptors, I don't have as much fondness for as the Lost World Tiger Stripe Raptors. I really like the Lost World ones. And so those got downranked really badly because I was very disappointed with them. Maybe if I really liked the JP3 Raptors, I'd be much more negative towards their figures, right? but because I don't feel as strongly about them, I'm willing to kind of let it go more. So I suppose there's a balancing factor in that sense. All right, that's enough rambling. Till next time.